One of the things, in fact,
If I can add
Yes.
one thing to Naina, right? When she said that one criteria was we should be able to write, I'll say she had more faith in us, in our ability to write than any of us did. In fact, the first time she came and told me that I'm doing this and I want you to write, I was like, Naina, I have never written anything about, and especially writing about me. You don't do that, right? You write about business, you write about politics, you write about others, but you don't ever write about yourself. So it was just,
did it take you on your own, on a journey? I'm sure you're introspecting all the time, but when you started putting it down,
it's
really.
like when you're a kid and you're writing your diary and, you know, reflecting on the good things and the bad things. That's what she did. She took us through that journey, and it was extremely tough, but I just loved it. So, you know,
one of the things, in fact, you mentioned in your essay as well, the fact that you were not really qualified, or you had not chosen that because you had taken a degree in that particular field. You went there because somewhere your heart said this is the right place to be. Is that a correct way of making choices?
The career, right?
Yes.
I always say that the career decision is one of the most important decisions you're going to make, right? If you want to be a professional. And yeah, when I decided to join Intel, I did not have an IT background. I'm not an engineer. I've studied economics. I walked into the Intel interview right after my MBA, and it was the first interview where I met an amazingly impressive woman who was the head of marketing for all of Asia Pacific, and she had come down to interview me. I'd never been interviewed by a woman at that kind of a level, and so charismatic, so intelligent, so amazing. She gave me a goal. She gave me something to work towards, and the moment I met her, something went on in my head, which was, this is who I want to be.
The role model, obviously.
This is who I want to be, and my thought was, if Intel is the kind of company where women can actually grow to these kind of positions, that's the company I want to be in. So it's not just 17 years, by the way. I'm going to be completing 19 years and still counting. So it's been absolutely a fantastic ride and absolutely the right decision.
But I get the feeling that it's probably not even the field that you choose, but the passion with which you're doing it. Ma'am, for instance, you were saying commerce is not something that you took by choice. She was sharing earlier with us that, in fact, she belongs to a family where education was a necessity. Her sister went into medicine. Her father thought they couldn't afford two children doing medicine at the same time. But excellence came to you nevertheless. You excelled. Share with us that story.
Yes, you did say rightly. I'm from a very lower middle class family of four brothers and three sisters. Of course, my father never discriminated between the boys and the girls, and he said the only wealth which I can give is the education, so all of you kindly choose. So I had in mind both science as well as the commerce, and of course, as she rightly put it, since my eldest sister, with the difference is about 14 years between us, she is a medico and she was gold medalist all through, so she set very tough standards for all of us. And I also thought that why not go for a medico? It has its own status symbol and carries. But my father said, I really cannot afford you to make you go through the medicine, so we're going to join commerce because the employment prospects are very good. So then that's how I changed my position in the college from science. I had taken admission for it and then moved on to the commerce. Absolutely no regrets, because it has proved to me extremely rewarding and very purposeful and eventful. My entire journey has been extremely very good.
So it's probably not so much about the subject, but perhaps values beyond the field that we choose that make you excel in whatever you do.
See, I have always believed that you must aspire for doing the best. So once you believe that, then you have the passion for it. Your inner self should actually commit to it. Then the action follows. whatever activities, whatever thought process you do, the introspection, the level of excellence you need to have at every level, every day. I mean, it just flows automatically and you don't feel stressed about it. And that's the way it's happened. Of course, I did have very good mentors. As girls of that age, decade, in fact, even my banking career is actually by accident. The day I was to go for test, that was the first time I traveled from Billepalli to Churchgate. I was supposed to go to the Nariman Point Air India building. And since I was traveling for the first time, my mother was in the hospital that day, so my father had sent his office peon. Instead of taking me to the Nariman Point, he took me to the fort. And I reached the venue 1 hour, 20 minutes late. So I was quite upset about it, and tears were rolling down. But then the peon said, why not we go up and see on the 17th floor? We will make a request that we made a genuine mistake. Why don't you carry out a test for me specially? Though I felt very stupid about it, I did make an attempt. And when I reached, they said the question paper has not yet come, madam. It is going to take another half an hour. So that is how I wrote the test, and I joined as a probationary officer. And then, of course, the rest is history. I could get promotion every time it was there. So then I could climb up to the chairman and managing director of Bank of India.
In fact, you quoted...
Yes.
So not to give up is one big lesson.
One very
Perseverance,
big lesson.
even when the game looks lost.
Yes, absolutely.
You, in fact, quoted patience, perseverance, and said that those are, and hard work, of course, not at all to be done away with. Avani, youngest among us, you were mentioning how, in fact, your Indian situation of a family is a big support to you, and you thought you couldn't do what you would be doing, what you are doing right now, if it were not for your mother-in-law.
I think it's very easy to have, to be hardworking, to have a goal, and to really be determined to get it. And I fortunately also come from a family which was very open-minded and cosmopolitan. But I think once you start a family and you decide to settle with somebody, I think it's important to be able to articulate and carry all those stakeholders with you. And I think I feel very humbled and proud that somewhere all the hard work, perseverance that you put in, but when you have a child and you have people you really care about, a crystal ball that you don't want to drop, I think there are a lot of hands that help you hold the crystal ball. And I think it's right that while you see women of different decades here, they've had their own journeys, but I think out of them, there are a lot of people at home whose stories are never told. My mom and my mother-in-law both are very humble homemakers, but I think they played a very important role to where I can get. And, I only wish that we're doing some research in the Tata Group, and it's about defining what the aspirations of women are in modern India. And one of the things that we constantly debate is what is the definition of a working woman? Because to me, I think I'm an escapist. The job that my mother or my mother-in-laws do is so hard and so difficult. At times it's thankless. At times it goes unrecognized.
Most times, perhaps.
Yeah, I think there should be a second book, maybe, not just Miss Kidwai, but others who write, because really the crystal ball is not easy to hold, and you do need hands. So for me, reincarnation of the mother-in-law or people who support us are really, really important.
Preetha, you were saying, I was just going through your essay, and it mentions that you actually got married very young, and then you decided to make a career, or you were thrown into it by a situation.
Completely thrown
in. And that taught
in.
you many, many lessons, you say.
Completely thrown in. And I have to confess to this audience that if my dad had a son, I probably won't even be sitting here among all of you. I'm in Hyderabad, and we come from an extremely traditional Andhra family. And I think from the time I was 16, the only thing I kept hearing was that I had to get married. So that's really what happened. In fact, Shobna, who was here a few minutes ago, was the first among the 4 sisters who actually started working. And I think she was the only one who could work hand in hand with my dad because sometimes she could stand up to him. So having said that, the initial drawings for the hospital, coming home from college and working with my dad, Shobna did that. Sunita did strategy even at that time, and Sangeeta is like, the queen of hearts, and she was the people person. So it was three of them who started working on the Apollo story, and I actually came in much later, and it was simply because Sangeeta got married and came off to Hyderabad, so there was no one to fill that role. And another reason why I said, I think I really have to work was that I felt extremely sorry for my dad because, he was at work 7 o'clock in the morning and was working till 12:30 in the night. And it was, the daughter-father relationship which said, Dad, can I just step in and help out? But I think it was hard. It was harder for our generation because sometimes I was telling Avani, I said, I feel like I'm one generation above all of you because I know girls of this age group have studied very well. They've gone to business schools and they can really handle it. But we literally felt like we were thrown into the deep end. And one management lesson I learned from my dad is that he taught us to swim by saying, jump into the deep end. And, if you sink, I'm here to hold you. So don't worry, you'll make it. And that's literally how four of us grew up working in the business and learning, because we always knew that there are only two things you can do. If you don't decide, it's a huge problem. You have to take that deep dive. And somewhere along the line, there'll be somebody to hold on to you and, just put you on the right path. And I think because we were the first in the kind of work we did, we learned the hard way. And let me tell you, it was really a man's world. Literally a man's world. It was controlled. And I'm sorry, all the men sitting here may not like me saying this, but the doctors...
For someone like me, you belong to a family of accomplished leaders.
Yeah.
Even in such a family, did it make a difference that because you were dealing with the world outside? Is that why you're saying this?
No, I think it was learning for sure. And, typically, I think our generation of Andhra women were very sheltered. We were told not to ask why, and we were told not to reason too much. And then you go to work, and then you have to question, and you have to ask why. And then there were doctors, and a lot of them were men. And it was a bit hard. So I think, we learned, it was really branding by fire. So we learned the hard way. But I must say that I would never have asked for anything better than the opportunity I got. Because what we learned has literally made us better people. It's taught us to prioritize, and I think that's probably what's important. So when they ask me about work-life balance and, how do you balance things, I think we learned from the time we started working that we just had to prioritize what we had to do for that day. And many a time, we might think children are important, but there would be somebody in the hospital whose needs were far more important than anything we'd have to do. So I think it was all about prioritizing, and luckily the children have learned the same thing, so they know to prioritize. And a lot of people at work respect us because they know that, we know how to prioritize what is important for the business, and I think that's probably been one of the greatest learnings ever.
The topic here says some leaders are born women. Did you see yourself as a leader, even in a young age? Did you think I need to groom myself, I need to get there, and therefore I must equip myself with these qualifications?
Well, all I can tell you is that I was always competitive even as a kid. If it was a cricket match, I had to bat first. I had to sort of win an argument, even with a group of boys. So maybe they say that, this competitive spirit starts early. And I come from a middle-class family, luckily with lots of cousins and, family around. But, interestingly, I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be financially independent. In the 8th standard, when the teacher had the session to say, what would you like to do? So my closest friend, we were two of us, and she said, I want to get married and have kids. So I said, great. So then the teacher said, what would you want to do? I said, I want to grow up, to be successful, I want to study, and I want to be successful and financially independent. She looked at me and said, 8th standard, where did you get this from? I said, I don't know. I just want to be. So I guess some things are influence around you or whatever, and both of us grew exactly to be that. And she grew up, she got married, she has 2 kids living in London, and I went on to study, build a career, and become successful. So I think some qualities I'd say are maybe a gift. For example, the ability to communicate, the ability to think, the ability to want to do something and relate to a few things. Maybe they are, in a way, inbuilt. The rest you can acquire and master, and I think experience teaches you a lot of things.